there a motion, we go back into session?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move on now with the next item on our agenda today has to do with the 2019-20 Waste Tire Grant Agreement. Becky Zocklin.
Thank you. The $4,000 waste tire grant is a gift from the state, pretty much, a grant from the state, from funds that are collected from when tires are sold. There's a waste tire fee that is collected with the sale of each tire, and this goes into this waste tire fund, and it is used to safely recycle or reuse in some way the remains of disposed of tires. And we use this money to recycle all the tires that we collect from Oldham County residents and farms, and it comes in
Okay.
very handy.
Is there a motion that I sign
Judge, I
this?
make a motion that you sign the agreement for $4,000 for the waste tire grant requiring no match.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that?
One question.
Mr. Greenwell.
Becky, I understand this is from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
Correct.
Are we in an agreement period now?
Yes,
Okay, so in other words, if I find a tire in the next 6 weeks,
bring it to the recycling center.
All right, good enough.
And we'll
Thank
make
you.
sure it's recycled.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we're on to the item D, the Airbnb voluntary collection agreement for transient room tax. And I'd like to ask Kim Buckler to, who's been, or Amy, okay. Got Kim and Amy here. We got to work together on this. All right, Kim has patiently learned a lot about rezoning today and other things, so, all right. All right, now how are we going to, do with this? Why is this tax necessary, and what are we going to do with it, and how are we going to collect it?
Okay, this has been a process. You remember last March, we passed the permit short-term rental ordinance, which was a planning and zoning deal. So that made all of the short-term rentals, which are basically the Airbnb properties and VRBO properties, have to collect the transient room tax now. So as that has happened since the official letters went out in November, so we have 48 tax collecting or tax paying properties, I guess. Only 7 of those are permitted? Yeah. So they pay the transient room tax and all of that, pennies usually, but they don't get promoted because they don't have permits. So the issue is, with Airbnb specifically, about a year or so ago, I was working with Kentucky Tourism Industry Association out of Frankfort and trying to work with Airbnb to see, because they're the largest, to see if there was a way that they would collect and submit those taxes for us, because the smaller communities, that's time consuming, and we in Oldham County are a one-person office, so it's extremely time consuming. So it started out, it was actually in Frankfurt in legislation last year, in 18, and it didn't get finalized at the last minute. Airbnb threw out some snags in it. So they were gonna, what ended up happening is they said, okay, we'll do what you all collectively as a state are asking with this tax, but we want to send it to one clearinghouse and let them divvy it up among all the communities, which would have been a nightmare. Plus, they would have charged a fee to do that, and we wouldn't have gotten all the taxes collected. So in that process, from September last year, I started working with Airbnb directly, and I got a contact person there. So I just kept at it since September to see if they would collect our tax for us. Louisville and Lexington are the only ones at the moment who get theirs collected. So if you've been following the news, Airbnb collects Louisville and Lexington's transient room tax. So finally, Airbnb sent out in February or so an email to all the people in the state, including members of KTIA, that said, we're no longer even going to consider this. This is a ridiculous amount of work, yada, yada, yada. So I sent an email and said, okay, what about me? I've been working on this since September. So to make a long story short, they have agreed for us. So that's what I'm assuming you all have in your packets. I had sent it, as soon as I got it, I forwarded it on to Judge Vogel and Melissa. And then I heard from John Carter that fiscal court had to sign off on it, because tourism doesn't have the authority for that. So that's where it is. It collects the tax. There are a couple bad things about it. I'll just tell you up front, because it was part of the deal that we fought last year. David Osborne was involved in that with me, so he's really familiar with the details of it. But the downside to it is, in our case, with the permit, we're not, when Airbnb does that, they don't submit personal information. So let's just say we have 100 properties in the county on Airbnb. Now, this is also just Airbnb alone. This is no other website that does the same thing, like VRBO. This is just Airbnb. They will submit the tax. They will collect the tax on the front end. Have you all ever done Airbnb? There's a room, you say this one is $100, well, there's this fee to Airbnb, there's this tax, there's this. So there might be 5 fees added to that for Airbnb. Airbnb gets that, keeps all those fees, submits the balance directly, direct deposit into the homeowner's account. So this transient room tax for Oldham County will be collected at that time, added into the same string of fees. So then they will turn around, send those payments in to the county, whether that's, I'm assuming, to Melissa Horn. The downside to that is there are a couple of bad things as far as how we tried to have it set up to start with. There are some lawsuits against Airbnb right now with other states, because in this process of them doing that, they're not going to give us a list of properties that they have collected from. It's just going to be a tax check. There is no way we're going to know who's compliant, who's not. What that does, however, is everybody who's renting, they have no choice but to collect the transient tax. So everybody who's renting on Airbnb will indeed have to pay the tax. We, on the back end of that, are just not going to know who that is. And Airbnb refuses to give that up. So there are other states who have lawsuits, or other cities or whatever in other parts of the country that have lawsuits against Airbnb. In reading the agreement that you all have, what I can't decipher from it is if it says, or they are looking for us to say back, how often they're going to submit that tax check. So that's where it is. There's no way I'll know when that comes in on my end, because I keep track of the spreadsheet of those, but I have to right now go property by property to Airbnb and look at my mass list, which is 100 and something properties. So this is a big time saver, but there's no way on the back end we're going to know names, addresses, any of that.
We're not going to know if we're getting what we're supposed to be getting. We're basically in a position where we're forced to trust them at this point.
We're forced to trust them. The caveat, or the other piece of that, is there are people that don't have their permits, and there are more than 48 of those properties on Airbnb, so they're not paying the tax in, period. And they have been educated. Tourism has spent probably $600-700 getting the word out about the permit that we had passed, the ordinance that was passed. This is the best thing I can come up with to collect a transient room tax without us as a one-person office having to do that manually every month to see.
How much is our permit?
The initial permit's $150, and then the renewal each year is $100.
Okay.
And
if-
they have a copy of that. They have a copy of that ordinance as well, so they may put that on the front end, I'm not sure, and that's not in that contract.
And if you're, let's say, identified as an Airbnb house, but you don't have a permit, how much is the penalty?
Well, we haven't gotten to the enforcement side of it because we'll have to cross-reference because we have a master list that Kim's done of everybody that's on there. Then we have a list of who is reporting, and then we have a list of only who has permits. So there's 3 lists that we've got to get narrowed down, and then most likely we'll send them a letter through code enforcement telling them that, we know that they have a listing on Airbnb. Either A, you don't have a permit and you're not collecting the fees, or B, you're paying the fees but you don't have a permit. So we have to go through and start that process of sending
And
those
if
letters
if
out.
Airbnb too, on that note, if they collect the permit up front, it's not, I don't want to say it's not going to matter, that's a bad choice, but
Right.
we're not going to know
Who
and that's
it's
a once
for.
a year thing. It's a once a year permit, so that's
Right.
likely not going to be collected.
Right.
It doesn't, I don't know how they could do that.
I don't think they can.
Magistrate Tice has a question.
Did I read in here that if you're signed up with Airbnb, then they automatically collect those funds before they reimburse the property owner?
Correct,
So therefore, they will automatically send us our funds.
correct.
So we don't have to worry about the property owner, because by the national account of Airbnb, and the reason people go with Airbnb rather than by themselves is because they have the notoriety, and people go on, look at Airbnb, and then automatically will find your sites that were listed in Oldham County. So they're going to collect that money, so I don't think that's a problem with
The
us.
issue is we don't
side.
know who it's from. So they're gonna send you a check for $250, but we don't know who collected that $250. So how do we enforce the regulations, is the question.
And we have to trust that Airbnb is going to do that. They're collecting the money, so it's not their money anyway, so they're gonna forward that money to us, I would think. Just like
What if
much
they
like
don't
they're
have a-
doing to Lexington and Louisville.
But if they don't have a permit, what if they don't have a permit to have an Airbnb?
We can't find those. If we can, we'll have to try, but those people are not gonna be easy accessible. So we're only gonna be finding those people. The people that are working are letting Airbnb do their advertising and their promotion for them, and collection agency, the money collectors. Those are the ones that we're gonna be able to get
But we
revenue
don't have
from.
any idea of who those people are, is the thing.
And neither does Louisville or Lexington, do they? If I heard you right? So
No, nobody, and that's a
we're not being
complaint.
treated any different.
Right.
It's just one of the way it is.
We could jump on the bandwagon of the lawsuits if we want to do that to get Airbnb to share the information. But as of now, that is not what's happening.
Magistrate Likens.
Yes, what is the transient room tax percent?
3,
3%. I think it's a good step. What we're doing right now is not the final ordinance that's going to have to be done with this, but I think it's a very good first step.
Magistrate Hounds.
If the burden of proof be put back on the Airbnb owner, if we go back and we try to find them, and if they say, well, I'm already paying the fee, if we tell them to prove it to us, then, I mean, we could backwards create our own list through code enforcement. They could prove that they've sent the money through Airbnb.
Okay, is there a motion that we accept this? Second, all right, move to second. Any further discussion on this? Melissa's shaking her head. Do you think, yeah, something that was just said didn't make sense to our treasurer, so
It's an
who's
unfunded mandate.
collecting this
and
money?
Melissa has to take care
this
of
does at least put all, let's say, lodging facilities in the county on a more equal footing, because our hotels, we definitely collect it there, and other people are certainly able to have people in their home, I guess, but I think when we passed the ordinance, we initially said that the people, your neighbors, need to know why people may be coming and going from your house all the time, if you live, and you should have a right to actually object to having, I think, too much, let's say, excessive staying in your neighborhood. I mean,
And that was the reason for the permit.
right, so we know what's going on. Okay, Melissa?
My question has to do with those establishments, bed and breakfasts in the area that may get rentals from Airbnb and they may get rentals on their own. So will they then be remitting taxes through Airbnb and also on their own?
Well, according to how that is set, that document is set up, Airbnb would take those from all of the Airbnb properties in Oldham County. If they did it on their own, they have to remit those separately. So like Bluegrass Country Estate would send you what she got on her own, but the rooms that she rents out on Airbnb would automatically be taken from Airbnb.
Thank you.
It seems like a step in the right direction here. It may not be the ultimate solution that we'd like to have, but it should gin up a little more funding to help promote the county through the Tourism Commission. And I think that's the ultimate goal here. And hopefully, most of this ginning up would come from people who move through the area and not our local taxpayers. Unless you left your home and went and stayed in an Airbnb house in the county.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Anybody else? Magistrate Hawkins?
Is it time for comment? Can I say something?
Yes.
Okay. I remember this from last March, and if somebody just rents their place out, say, for Derby weekend, this will kind of, if they go through Airbnb, kind of put a little squeeze on them a little
Which
bit.
is another positive of it. There are some that rent out once a year, twice a year, so they're the ones who fight the permit because they're not gonna make that much money in their mind, and to pay the transient room tax. Yeah, because we have a ton of people on our list that are not even submitting their forms. So this is doing it this way is the easiest way to tighten all that up without sending out of 48 properties, 30 of them, late notices and penalties and all of that for not even submitting paperwork.
Okay.
Judge, the whole thing about this is people are doing these Airbnbs, making these $1,000 a night deals. They don't want anybody to find out that's unearned income.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. That's why they're trying to stay under the radar, because they don't want to pay tax, income tax on it.
Well, and Airbnb's argument is that's why they don't give out the personal information, and that's why Airbnb, even though they're the most expensive for hosts to do, they promise anonymity. So that's why they don't share information with any of us, with anybody. So there are, and it's on the West Coast where the lawsuits are.
They get big enough, IRS will come knocking on the door.
All right, see no further questions. Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Oops, yeah, 8-1. Next item on the agenda here has to do with the road committee.
Nope.
Excuse me, that's Encompass.
Yes.
All right, let's see where I put that here, right here. We have, I guess I'll give that to Building Committee. Is that Magistrate Likens?
Thank you. Yes, sir. We would like to recommend as a Building and Maintenance Committee that we accept the professional services agreement with Encompass Development, Design, and Construction, and this is in regard to the church next door in the amount of $17,250.
All right, and this contract is to do the design for a small addition that we're going to put on that church building, correct?
That and for recommendations on what we can do to the whole entire building as a whole.
So this design on the back page, this is what we're talking about? Or that's just some,
Well, I think that's what we're talking
That's just
about.
a-
We're talking,
That's their rates on the back page.
we paid 17,000 for that?
no, we're getting the construction documents and the
Oh.
design documents.
Okay, just want to be
Right.
sure.
Yes. Where is it? It's on the back page of this.
All right, any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're on to the road department. Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you, Judge. Two of the items we're going to discuss today, Road Committee had a chance to meet about one of them and vote on it. And the second one was an erosion control bond release that came in after the Road Committee meeting. So Jim Silliman is going to walk us through both of these.
Jim Silliman, County Engineer, 100 West Jefferson Street, LaGrange, Kentucky. The first item, the speed limit reduction at Old Taylor Place subdivision. We received a letter, the engineering department received a letter earlier this year from the homeowners association discussing that they had, when the subdivision or the neighborhood was originally established, they had a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit posted and established through their documents, their restrictions. Around 1995, the roads were adopted into the county system and have been maintained by the county. So that type of street typically has a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. They recently realized that that was the case, and so their 15-mile-an-hour speed limit posting no longer complies with the legal 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and they requested that be legally reduced or reduced through the fiscal court. The engineering department investigated the streets. There's one or more areas where the geometry of the vertical curvature is consistent with speeds less than 20 miles an hour, and several curves horizontally where the speed's consistent with less than 20 miles an hour. So the geometry of the road is consistent with something that would be less than 20, so the 15 seems reasonable there. Also, we didn't receive a petition with individual signatures of the neighborhood, but we received a letter from the homeowners association president representing all the members and stating that they would like the speed limit reduced. So we discussed this in road committee, and road committee agreed that this would be a reasonable request.
Magistrate Greenwell?
Judge, Magistrate Tice, I believe, has a motion for us.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accept this, that their speed limits stay at 15 miles per hour. Had several discussions with them over a while. They did everything we asked, including present sign certificate to people that they wanted it that way. So I move that we lower the speed limits to 15 miles per hour.
I'll second that.
Right, moved and seconded to lower the speed limit at Old Taylor Place from 25 to 15 miles an hour. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The second item, the erosion control bond release for Ballard Woods Section 5. The owner-developer of that subdivision has canceled construction on the project. No construction had begun yet, so there was really no inspection needed to be done. We did check, and no construction had started, so they've requested the bond be released. As discussed, we'd like to recommend to release that bond.
Judge, I'll make the motion that we release that erosion control bond in the amount of $65,000.
Moved and seconded that the erosion control bond in the amount of $65,000 be released. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to personnel actions, and the first one is we'll take care of here at the Oldham County Police Department. We have three officers retiring effective May 31st. They are Thomas Moore, a detective. Tom has been with our department since February of 2000. Has almost 20 years with us, just a little shy. For many years, he was our canine officer and did a great job of taking care of our dog known as Reggie. Reggie retired in 2013 and did die about a year ago. Our second retiree is Officer Mike Head. Mike began his law enforcement career with LaGrange, and he's been with Oldham County Police for just over 16 years. Our third officer retiring is Matt Lay. Matt started with the Oldham County Jail back in 1968, and he was with the Sheriff's Department for a number of years. He also worked with ABC in Frankfort, and he's been with the Oldham County Police for the past 6 years. Matt is father of at least 4 girls, maybe 5, I'm not sure, so I think he has his work cut out for him, and I congratulate him on taking on the challenge of going home. So these are all young girls, too, or at least maybe 12 or younger. I'm not sure exactly what the ages are, but anyway. It's not, all of these guys are great guys, and we really appreciate everything they have done in Oldham County, and their service will certainly be missed. They've been stellar officers. We've been very proud to have their service and wish them the best in the future. So is there a motion that we accept these resignations?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes. How, are we replacing these? I mean, we're losing 3 out of
Yes.
30?
We're in the process of replacing.
Very good.
We will, I think, have 31 or 32 officers.
10% of our
We'll
force.
maintain our full strength here. All right, hearing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Of course. Motion carries. Best wishes to these guys. Now we have also here the contract renewal for Greg Smith, our Chief of Police. This will be effective June 1st, 2019, as the attached contract indicates. There's no change in his contract other than 2% salary increase. It's the same contract we had last year. We began our contract in June 1st of last year for Greg, and he's helped us by going on a year-to-year contract. We're no longer required to make a pension contribution for him.
I'd love to make that motion. I think he's a great asset to the county.
All right, is that motion moved and seconded? Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And we appreciate Greg Smith's willingness to stay with the county. When I hired him, he said he'd stay here as long as I will, and well, it may have gotten a little bit longer than what he thought it was going to be in the beginning, but we're still here. Thank goodness for us. Now we have some appointments to the Oldham LaGrange Development Board here and some other places. What?
Still got
Skip something?
lifeguards. You still got lifeguards on there.
Okay, where
Aquatic
was
staff.
that? Back on the first sheet. All right, I turned the page too quick here. We have two people at the Parks Department, aquatic staff, Jack Markham and Ella LeClaire. These are $8.59 and $8.67 an hour employees for the aquatic staff for the summer. Is there a motion to approve these people?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion on that? One is getting a little bit more than the other because it's been here a little bit longer. It's the second year. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now, I'd like to, earlier this year, I appointed Steve Edwards, with your confirmation, to the Oldham LaGrange Development Authority Board. He took the place of John Black, who went off the board when he became mayor. I'd like now to reappoint Steve to his full term until May 31st of 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So, now to the Tourism Commission. Kim Buckler was here a minute ago, and we didn't have a chance to talk about this then, but Barry Laws from Open Range and Crestwood, I'd like to appoint him to the Tourism Board. I think Barry's business is certainly one of those that draws tourism to Oldham County and has a vested interest in promoting the county and trying to get more people here, and I think he'll do a good job.
You could say his business is booming.
Yeah, his business is, or taking shots at people, or taking shots, not at people, but, so, all right, would somebody like to, I'll make that motion, anybody second that?
Second.
All right, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now to the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Board, I'd like to reappoint Ken Stess from SNA Insurance in Crestwood. Ken to a term that would expire on the first day of June of 2022.
I'll make
So
that
moved.
motion,
Great
Judge.
job.
Okay, motion second, moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now, I think we're down to our last public comment. I don't see anybody in the room here that raising their hand. Anybody like to say anything? Andrew, you got a comment today, or? Okay, you're all right, okay. All right, so close public comment. Let's wind up our meeting here. It's almost 5:30. Everybody'd like to probably head on out. I do believe the Chamber of Commerce is having a function here somewhere.
Pee Wee Valley
Is it Pee Wee Valley? And then,
building,
is it 6 o'clock, or what time does it
6
begin?
o'clock.
Right. Today is Election Day. We are live, I believe, aren't we, Jay? Or are we, not today? Okay, all right, so if you hear this later, you missed your chance to vote if you forgot, so. Magistrate Likens, you like to wind things up?
Oh, I was going to say, be sure and vote today, but if we're not live, it's probably moot. I would like to ask you the time of the Memorial Day celebration that's going on.
It'd be 10 a.m. on the courthouse lawn.
10 a.m.
Right.
Thank you.
And please turn out. We are live now. Okay, well, how,
So vote today.
okay.
You got 30 minutes.
If you haven't voted yet, you've got 30 minutes to make your move. And, better hurry. All right. Magistrate Tice.
Have nothing, thank you, Judge.
Magistrate Albert.
Yes, sir. Do you want me to bring up the
Yes.
Park Committee? We have a working contract with Tetra Tech, and one of the elements in there for this first phase of the task was to have two meetings with the stakeholders, and we'd like to have one with county government at our meeting on June 4th. It'd just be a brief presentation by Tetra Tech so everybody gets a better idea of what we're doing. And at Chris Hounds' suggestion, we'll try to send out copies of the PowerPoint presentation beforehand. Secondly, on the following week, no, that same week, on Thursday, on June 6th, we'll try to have a community meeting in Westport just to inform the local people what's going on and give a presentation to them. News item, Highway 524 bridge, it is in the creek in multiple pieces. Everybody, please use the marked detour route on East 524 and slow down, please. We've had reported speeding on 18 Mile Creek Road and Rebel Ridge Road. There will be increased law enforcement officers out there watching for that. Remind everybody the ramp in Westport is open and all the businesses in Westport are open. Military Day is real short this time. Monday, May 27th, Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And where, that meeting in Westport, do you have a location for it yet?
I'm going to try to have it at the Baptist Church New Life Center.
Right, Magistrate Greenwell.
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to offer my condolences to Tim Keel and his family with the loss of his mother. Tim is a great employee, and I know he was very involved with his mom there at the end. Second thing is I attended the Peace Officers Memorial service at LaGrange Baptist Church. I think I've been going for 15 or 16 years, but it's a very moving service, and it's just very well done, and we just, I know everybody on this court appreciates the gentlemen that and women that serve us as peace officers, and it's a really good service.
Okay, thank you. Magistrate Hounds.
Yes, Judge. Last week we had or 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, we had a public meeting concerning the Ash Avenue issues that we're having with the construction there. Just again, like to thank everybody that attended that meeting. We had about 70 people attend the meeting for about an hour, and were able to voice their concerns, and hopefully they'll get that project wrapped up in August. Other point of note is starting for most of the fire departments on Monday is collection for the Crusade for Children. They'll be at roadblocks and in neighborhoods. It's a great charity because the money comes back to Oldham County. What's collected in Oldham County comes back to Oldham County. So if you're able to, please be generous.
Magistrate Hawkins.
I've since learned that when you ask for a second, when your name is called to vote, that means you're trying to see which way the wind blows. in the vote. So I just wanted to clarify that I just wanted a second, because both sides of that argument were very compelling, and so I just wanted to clarify that I really just wanted a second. So that is all.
Well, we wouldn't accuse you of being a fence sitter, you know.
Thank you.
Magistrate Dye.
Yes, Judge. This past weekend, myself, then the judge, and Magistrate Logston attended the Gold Families Recognition Ceremony at South Oldham High School. Gold Star families are families, military families who has lost someone. It was a very nice gathering, a very nice program. Secondly, again, the Oldham County Republican Party, June 14th, 6:30 p.m., Udell Gardens. If you're looking for tickets, call 222-1731. It's $60 a person and $30 a student. Thank you.
Any Magistrate Logston? Nothing, sir. Nothing, all right. All right, let's see here, it's now 5:30, so that means we've gone on, 3.5 hours? Okay, so that's enough for today. If anybody's watched this program on television for 3.5 hours, congratulate you, thank you for sticking with us. We have a lot of good things going on Channel 184, and you can find our menu, I guess, or schedule of programs on our website and also on our Facebook page. So just because of the fact that we have meetings that take irregular amounts of time, it's kind of hard to run a schedule, because this is like a 3.5 hour meeting. Sometimes our meetings are an hour. Well, Jay has to kind of work a schedule around. LaGrange is on there, the Planning Commission, the boards that are on there. We try to do videotape speakers who are in the community and let people know about other things going on. So we're going to keep promoting and pushing and inviting people to watch our channel. If you go to YouTube, we have several hundred videos that have been made by Jay and how many? How many? 800. Okay, well, that's about 100 a year we're doing. We're doing quite a few, plus our meetings. So anyway, well, thank you for being with us today. Have a wonderful day. Is there a motion to adjourn?